After Iran launched missiles into Israel, the Middle East issue has escalated once again. Many people are concerned that once Iran becomes involved, Israel will face an existential crisis. The United States may intervene to provide support. We are not military experts, so we can't analyze in depth whether the US will actually intervene. However, we can look at it from the perspective of weapons and equipment. If the US does decide to support Israel with its military power, could the US quickly deploy military forces around Israel? In other words, given the US military's transport capabilities, how quickly could they deploy ground forces to the conflict zone? Today, let's explore how strong the US military's strategic transportation capability really is. Don't forget to like and subscribe while watching the video. Thank you. The US military's strategic transportation capability is one of the key factors that help maintain its superpower status. When evaluating US military strength, there is a fitting saying, you can say the US military is corrupt, but you can't say it's weak. As the only superpower in the world, the key to maintaining the USS position is its superior military strength. This strength is reflected in two main aspects. First, the quality of its soldiers and weapons leads the world. Second, its ability to execute strategic deployments. Whenever the US wants, it can quickly deploy military forces anywhere in the world and in a short period of time. It's not just soldiers and weapons, but also logistics that are continuously ensured. After all, the troops haven't moved, but the supplies go ahead. In recent years, most of the US military's operations have taken place overseas, which has led to a greater emphasis on strategic transportation capabilities. There are two main modes of transportation: sea transport and air transport. While sea transport has a large capacity, it takes much longer. During wartime, the US military prefers air transport due to its speed, flexibility, and shorter transit time. To enhance its airlift capabilities, the US has developed several large and super large cargo aircraft, with notable models being the C-130 Hercules, C-17 Globemaster III, and C-5M Super Galaxy. Among these three aircraft, the C-17 offers the highest adaptability. It doesn't depend on runway conditions and can take off and land on short, poorly maintained runways. In combat situations, even in areas with complex terrain and harsh geological conditions, the C-17 can still provide logistics support, transport weapons, and deliver reinforcements to US forces. While the adaptability of the C-130 isn't as strong as the C-17's, it boasts exceptional upgradability, earning it the nickname King of Modifications, with more than 40 different variants. The famous C-130 gunship is one such example, derived from the C-130. The C-5M Super Galaxy, our main focus today, may not stand out as much as the other two aircraft, but in the realm of transportation, it is a unique phenomenon, truly deserving of the title King of Cargo. The C-5M Super Galaxy is an upgraded version of the C-5 Galaxy. Developed by Lockheed Martin, the C-5 is a large strategic cargo aircraft and currently holds the title of the largest strategic cargo aircraft in use by the US military. It is capable of carrying extremely heavy loads with front and rear doors that allow for simultaneous loading and unloading. The C-5's illustrious transport history dates back to the 1960s. At that time, the US military primarily used two types of cargo aircraft, the C-133 and C-124. However, with weapons and equipment becoming heavier and those aircraft nearing the end of their service life, they could no longer meet the US military's transportation needs. As a result, the military urgently required a large cargo aircraft. The CX-4 project was proposed in 1961, but was eventually cancelled due to its lack of significant transport capability improvements over the C-141. Subsequently, the CX-HLS Heavy Logistics System Plan was introduced, calling for a cargo aircraft with substantial transport capacity and high performance. In the end, Lockheed Martin won the contract for the aircraft's fuselage design, while General Electric won the contract for the engines with their TF-39 model. The first C-5 was delivered to the US Air Force in 1970, and by 1973, a total of 81 C-5A aircraft had been delivered. However, shortly after being put into service, cracks were discovered in the wings, which significantly limited the aircraft's payload capacity. As a result, 77 C-5A planes had their wings replaced. Similar upgrades and improvements continued in the years that followed. With advances in technology, the C-5 fleet was significantly upgraded. The C-5B version not only featured new wings, but also received more advanced engines and avionics. The C-5C version further expanded the cargo hold to allow for the transport of NASA's satellites. However, the most famous version of the C-5 fleet is the C-5M Super Galaxy. Scientists determined that the C-5's fuselage still had 80% of its original lifespan remaining, prompting a comprehensive upgrade plan. The avionics system was overhauled, allowing for the integration of a global air traffic management system with improved communications, new liquid crystal display screens, and an upgraded autopilot system. The navigation and safety systems were also upgraded to the latest versions. Additionally, the engines were replaced with General Electric's CF680C2 model. This upgraded version was named the C-5M Super Galaxy. Thanks to the new engines, the C-5M's thrust increased by 22%. Its takeoff distance was reduced by 30% and its climb rate improved by 38%. The first C-5M was put into service in 2002 and is expected to remain in operation until 2040. Overall, the C-5M truly deserves the title of Super Galaxy. While its appearance is similar to the C-141, the size of the C-5M is much larger. Its maximum payload reaches up to 127 tons, almost enough to carry the entire US military's equipment. It can transport 27 cases of 355 milliliter Coca-Cola, 6 Apache helicopters, 2 M1A2 tanks, or even an A-10, F-14, or C-130 aircraft. Even a 74-ton mobile bridge can be carried by the C-5M. Despite its large payload, thanks to its 4 engines, the C-5M can take off with ease. The combined thrust of these 4 engines is equivalent to 3,200 regular cars running simultaneously. Additionally, with 12 fuel tanks integrated into its wings, the C-5M can carry 194,300 litres of fuel, allowing it to fly continuously for 4,000 kilometres without needing to refuel. If refueled in the air, the C-5M's range is only limited by the endurance of its crew. In general, as a cargo aircraft, the C-5M can be described as formidable. It can transport any piece of US military equipment to anywhere in the world. To give you a better sense of its capabilities, let's consider some examples of the C-5M in combat. The Vietnam War was the first time the C-5 participated in combat. During the later stages of the war, as the US military withdrew from the battlefield, North Vietnam launched an attack on the south. Before leaving, the US military used the C-5 to support its allies. In just 9 days, the C-5 transported 3,000 soldiers and 1,600 tons of cargo. At the same time, the C-5 also urgently transported tanks and helicopters to ports and airfields in Vietnam. To speed up the unloading process, the C-5 employed a method where cargo was unloaded while the engines were still running. Specifically, after landing, the C-5 continued taxiing on the runway, opened its rear cargo door, and cargo such as tanks would automatically slide out. In just a few minutes, the entire cargo was unloaded, and the C-5 immediately took off to carry out the next mission. A year later, when the C-5 left Vietnam, it delivered another impressive performance in the Middle East. During the Fourth Yom Kippur War, an Arab coalition led by Syria and Egypt launched a surprise attack, with weapons and equipment transported by the Soviet Union. Israel, unprepared at the time, was caught off guard and immediately requested aid from the United States. The US deployed the C-5 to transport weapons and military supplies to Israel. In just over 30 days, the US military made more than 500 flights, transporting a total of 22,000 tons of cargo. Although the US began its transport several days later than the Soviet Union, the C-5's superior transport capabilities allowed the US to surpass the Soviet Union in total cargo delivered. During the Gulf War, the true power of the C-5 was fully demonstrated. This time, it not only supported allies, but also served the US military directly. To ensure smooth military operations, the US military made an average of 300 flights per day over the 70 days leading up to the war, transporting a total of 191,500 tons of equipment and supplies. Of this, 84% of the transport missions were carried out by the C-5 and C-141. Thanks to the presence of the C-5, the number of US soldiers in Iraq surged from under 10,000 to 500,000 in just a few weeks. Even Coca-Cola was delivered to the front lines. Today, the US military not only owns the C-5M, but also the C-17 and C-130J Super Hercules. The number of cargo aircraft in the US fleet surpasses that of most other countries around the world. It can be said that the strength of these cargo planes has provided the US military with superior operational capabilities. With their ability to transport quickly, flexibly, and efficiently, the US military can deploy forces and equipment to any hotspot around the world in the shortest time possible. This not only helps them maintain a strategic advantage, but also ensures their ability to respond rapidly to emergencies. What do you think about the strength of US cargo aircraft? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any exciting videos. Goodbye, and see you next time.